She walked like the floor didn't want her there. Quiet, careful, invisible. Lana was used to being unseen. It was easier that way in places like Valora Prime, where chandeliers cost more than her rent, and guests thought kindness came with a receipt. She was 19, brown-skinned, hair wrapped tight in a bun because professional here meant hiding who you were. Her name tag hung crooked. No one told her to fix it. They just looked at it like it was a stain. Her shift had started 12 hours ago. She hadn't eaten since yesterday. One slice of white bread and a can of soda, swallowed between alley shadows and cigarette smoke. Her shoes were a size too small, borrowed, and each step whispered pain. But she smiled. That's what they liked. Smiles without sound. Then the door opened. Not dramatically, just a soft ding from the brass chime above. Lana didn't expect to notice, but something made her look. The man who entered didn't belong. Not because he wasn't dressed right. Muted gray coat, worn jeans, boots that had stories. Number he didn't belong because he didn't try to. He walked like silence. Like he'd learned how to disappear in rooms that only saw money. His sunglasses didn't scream celebrity. They whispered privacy. "Corner table," barked Mr. Holt from across the room. "The guy in the coat. Be quick. He's not tipping." Lana nodded, even though her throat felt dry. As she reached the table, the man turned to her with a soft smile, the kind that didn't ask for anything. "Hi," he said gently. "You're Lana, right?" Her heart stuttered. "Yes, sir. Would you like something to drink?" "Just water. Thank you." He looked at her, really looked. Not like she was furniture or help, like she was a person. She brought the water, and he thanked her again, like it mattered. Across the room, a waiter leaned toward a table of regulars. "We've got a Subway stray at table 16, he snorted. The guests laughed, but not the man. He simply placed his napkin on his lap and glanced at Lana once more. "Long day?" he asked, voice low. She nodded, surprised she even answered. He didn't push, just gave her a look, quiet, understanding. She walked away, and for the first time that day, something in her spine straightened. From the kitchen window, she heard whispers. "Who is that guy? Looks like he shops at Goodwill." Probably somebody's failed agent. Lana bit her tongue. They didn't know. But somehow, she felt like he did. What Lana didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man in the corner wasn't just another forgotten guest. He was here for a reason, and when the moment came, he wouldn't be the one staying silent. Lana returned with his risotto, carefully plated, steam curling upward like a quiet apology. The man looked up, eyes soft but sharp, like he saw more than just food. "Is this the famous dish I read about in the Times?" he asked. She managed a tired smile. "Yes, sir. Though the Times didn't have to wash the rice 6 times. He laughed. Not politely, genuinely. The kind of laugh that breaks through tension. "I appreciate the honesty." She placed the dish down, her fingers trembling slightly. "Enjoy your meal." "Lana," he said before she turned. She looked back. "Do they always treat you like you're invisible here?" She hesitated. Her voice came out small. "Some nights, I'm lucky enough to be ignored." He didn't laugh, just nodded, slow and thoughtful. The room didn't notice the quiet moment between them. It was too busy adjusting itself for someone louder. The front doors opened again, this time with the cold confidence of someone who expected the world to hold its breath. Genevieve Marlowe had arrived. She didn't walk, she glided, wrapped in ivory silk and entitlement. She didn't look around. She didn't have to. Mr. Holt nearly tripped trying to greet her. "Miss Marlowe, your table is—" "I know where it is," she replied without looking at him. "Near the fireplace." That was the table next to the man's. Lana's section. "Lana," Holt snapped, "take over Jared's post. You've got Marlowe's table. And don't mess this up." She's legacy. Lana nodded slowly, the knot already forming in her stomach. When she approached the table with the wine list, Genevieve didn't glance up. Instead, she inspected her fork like it had personally offended her. "Miss Marlowe," Lana said gently, "welcome back. May I start you with—" "You may start," Genevieve cut her off, "by finding someone who knows how to speak clearly." One of the men at the table chuckled. Another winced. Lana didn't respond. She'd been trained for this. Silence. Genevieve finally looked up. Her eyes scanned Lana's hair, skin, shoes. "So you're what they're hiring now?" she said with a cool smirk. "How refreshing." At the corner table, the man in the gray coat paused with his fork mid-air. He didn't look over, but his posture shifted. He was listening. Lana served quietly, her hands behind her back, her pride folded beneath her apron. When Genevieve took the wine list, she did it like Lana's hands were contagious. "I'll have the 1995 Margot," she said, "assuming this place hasn't run out of taste." "Yes, ma'am," Lana whispered. Then, just loud enough for only the table to hear, Genevieve asked, "Tell me, dear, how does someone like you end up in a place like this?" Lana blinked. "This restaurant used to mean something," Genevieve continued. "Now we have activism in aprons. Charming." The words stung, but Lana kept her head high. Across the room, the man set his knife down, quietly. He hadn't reacted before, but this wasn't a normal evening. The moment hadn't arrived yet. But it was coming. And when it did, he wouldn't stay seated. Genevieve reached for her clutch with the kind of calm that came from always getting her way. Conversation at the table dimmed. Even the chandeliers seemed to hush. She pulled out a small, silver object. Not a mirror, not lipstick. It caught the candlelight like a threat. Scissors, ornate, cold, sharp. Lana froze. Genevieve smiled, twirling them between her fingers like they were jewelry. "Now, I'm not one to get involved in staff matters," she said sweetly. "But perhaps someone should have helped you. Refine the look a little." Her eyes dropped to Lana's hair. Thick, natural, beautiful. "You know what they say," she continued, blade flashing with every turn. "First impressions are everything. And that hair, well, it makes quite a statement." The man in the gray coat, Keanu, slowly folded his napkin. No sound, just purpose. One of the men at Genevieve's table shifted uncomfortably. The woman beside him stopped smiling. Lana's hands were locked behind her back. Her fingers trembled, but her face stayed still. Genevieve leaned forward, scissors gleaming inches from Lana's curls. "Just a little off the sides," she whispered. "Or maybe something bold. Something that says, 'I know my place.'" That's when it happened. The chair scraped quietly. Keanu stood up. Not fast, not loud. But everyone nearby turned to look. He walked toward them with the calm weight of a man who doesn't raise his voice, because the room listens anyway. Genevieve didn't see him coming, but Lana did. And for the first time that night, she breathed. The blades in Genevieve's hand snapped open and shut once more. A slow, cruel sound. Keanu stopped beside the table and gently held out a folded napkin toward Lana. "You drop this," he said softly. Lana blinked. Her breath caught. She reached out and took it like it meant everything. Because tonight, it did. Then Keanu turned, slow, controlled, and looked Genevieve in the eye. "The thing about scissors," he said calmly, "is that I've worked with some of the most brilliant costume designers and stylists in the world, and not one of them ever used them like that." Genevieve opened her mouth to laugh. "It was just a joke, Mr. Reeves." "No," he interrupted, his voice still low. "It wasn't." Silence flooded the room. He turned to Mr. Holt, who had just arrived, red-faced and sweating. "Tell me," Keanu said without even looking at him, "does this place have a policy against humiliating staff?" Yes," Of course, Mr. Reeves, Holt stammered. Absolutely. Then I suggest you enforce it. The scissors suddenly felt heavier in Genevieve's hand. She lowered them. For once, she looked unsure. Keanu turned back to Lana. You okay? He asked, gentler now. She nodded, but her voice didn't work yet. They don't get to cut you, he said softly. Not now. Not ever. And with that, he turned and walked back to his table. No applause, no spotlight. Just quiet power that filled the room like thunder with no sound. Lana stood frozen, her fists still clenched behind her back, as whispers rippled through the dining room like wind through tall glass. Mr. Holt moved quickly, face pale, voice tight. Miss Marlowe, he said, holding out his hand. I'm going to have to ask you to surrender the scissors. Genevieve stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Excuse me? No misunderstanding, he said, barely holding his authority. This isn't up for debate. With exaggerated grace, she placed the scissors into his palm like she was returning borrowed jewelry. That girl clearly isn't cut out for service, she hissed. But Holt was already turning away, whispering into his earpiece. One word stood out. Security. Genevieve's posture faltered. The calm cracked, and for the first time, her voice wavered. You people don't understand who I am. Keanu, from the corner, didn't look up. He just sipped his water and continued his meal, like justice was already served. Lana stood there, trying to steady her breath when her feet moved without thinking. She stepped closer to him, hands shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wasn't trying to cause anything. He looked up, eyes soft again. You didn't. She did. A pause. Then he added, but you stood up. Even without raising your voice, you stood tall. She swallowed hard. The lump in her throat was made of years of silence. Across the room, security guided Genevieve toward the exit. Not dragged, just removed. Elegantly. Like a guest who was no longer welcome. Holt didn't yell, didn't make eye contact. He just vanished behind the bar. The silence left behind wasn't awkward. It was full of something else. Recognition. The waiters watched Lana now, not with pity, but something closer to respect. The guests whispered, not about Genevieve, about the man who stood. Back in the kitchen, someone handed Lana a glass of water. Another folded a napkin and tucked something inside it. A note. In slow handwriting. They don't get to cut you. She pressed it into her pocket like it was armor. Later that night, as the floor cleared and the whispers faded, Holt found her in the break room. The owner wants to speak with you, he said, holding out the restaurant phone like it might explode. Me? He nodded once. She answered. Hello? A pause. Then a voice, familiar and gentle. Hey, it's Keanu. Her breath hitched. I figured this would be easier than making it a spectacle, he said. But I just wanted to say, you handled tonight with more grace than most people ever do. She didn't know what to say, but he continued. There's a program I fund in Milan, culinary scholarships, for people who never got invited, but always had the fire. Silence. Her mouth moved before she could think. I don't even have a passport, he chuckled. We'll handle that part. All I need is one word. Another pause. Deep. Still. Yes, she whispered. By morning, her name was off the server schedule. And Genevieve's? Quietly erased from the reservation system. The napkin with his note sat beside a printed passport form on her dresser. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She had been seen, heard, chosen, and the world would never erase her again.